The NBA Gambling Podcast on the Sports Game Podcast Network is brought to you by Malik Fantasy. Get the $1,000 deposit match when you sign Malik Fantasy with the promo code NBA SGPN. And welcome, everybody, to the NBA Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Game Podcast Network. It is currently Monday, June 30th, around 6 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm your host, Reichel, once again joined by Lonte Smith. Together, we're going to break down the draft, going through some trades as well. Had some moves over the last few days. Let's talk about those, talk about the actual draft wins and losers for the actual, once again, draft itself. But, Lonte, how's it going with you? It feels weird having no games anymore, but how have you enjoyed the offseason so far?
So far, so good, man. But, the offseason, it never stops with basketball. I mean, we go right into the summer league. We got free agency. A lot of deals have already been going on. Sham said a ton of deals are going to go on. So they got the show in about an hour. So, hopefully we get some breaking news while we're doing the pod, actually.
Yes, well, it was pretty interesting on where we should start because we have missed a couple of important, let's say, news bulletins, a couple trades. You had a point-shaving allegation. I'll ask you where you want to start because we had the Beasley news happen yesterday, which is still up in the air. They still have to do some investigation stuff. We'll see what happens. I'll tell you what, though, Beasley, who was in line for $42 million, is not feeling too good right now. But I'll ask you right now for Beasley and for Detroit. Any thoughts on this? Because it seemed like he was headed back to Detroit, and now we've noted what's going to happen.
Yeah, I have no idea what's going to happen. I've seen it, but I haven't read or put together any type of opinion. But I did hear one person that I trust who covers the NBA say he read Tom Habershaw's piece, and there wasn't a ton there. I mean, a couple of things here and there. I know the highlight going around is the Milwaukee. Is the Milwaukee thing, but they're not. The Minnesota thing, but they're not investigating that. They're investigating the Milwaukee thing. So, yeah, definitely horrible timing. I will say that. But a couple of the guy that I trust who kind of covers the NBA was saying it may be similar to what Terry Rozier was going through, where it's not really a ton there to come charge him. But FBI gets involved, it's never good.
Yeah, people forget that the Rozier thing happened. I know people were trying to pull up actual videos of him being terrible, claiming he was actually point shaving, and then nothing happened to him, besides the fact that he was bad at basketball. That's kind of the only thing that happened there. But either way, point is Rozier was able to beat these allegations. Maybe Beasley can do the same. But I wanted to mention it. We have to wait to see what happens moving forward. You might get a great deal on Beasley if he's found innocent because he still has some baggage attached to him, but you might see a discount available for him. We'll see what happens, but either way, I wanted to mention that. Do want to mention some of the trades, though, that we ended up seeing. There were a couple of draft trades, which we're going to briefly touch upon, but mostly for draft discussion. I do want to ask you, though, about the actual trades that did happen. We saw Drew Holiday, who was headed to Portland in what I thought was an insane deal, but I'll mention that in a bit more detail now. Drew Holiday was traded to the Celtics. From the Celtics to the Trailblazers for Anthony Simons and 2 future second-round picks, which I thought was insane based on the contract that Drew has. And it feels like Simons, who's expiring, if he doesn't work out, they could get rid of him at the end of the year. But Anthony Simons is actually pretty good, at least offensively. And Holiday looked bad in the postseason. He's getting up there in years, and he's under contract for another 2-3 years. So I'll start off with the Drew Holiday contract. Can you explain this to me from a Portland perspective? Because I get they want the veteran leadership and maybe a mentorship piece to it, but they're paying him that much money? Am I missing something? They gave up picks with that? I think that's insane. You have to get a pick back in return.
Yeah, I can't explain it, and I agree. So my thing is, and he doesn't want to be there. Because you've had him before. That's how he got to Boston.
Yeah,
you had him before, and now he obviously doesn't want to be there. Now, again, he got paid. Things can be different when you're in a different role. I can't explain the Portland thing. I really can't. I get, like you said, the veteran leadership, but there's way cheaper ways to find veteran leadership than paying, $39 million for Drew Holiday, who's, defensively, I can see it, but, he's not going to do a ton for you on offense, which is pretty much what you're going to need. Defensively, they were, I think, post All-Star break, they were one of the better defensive teams in the league. So defense wasn't an issue. It's the offensive end where you don't have a true point guard. I mean, wing players, okay, Shaden Sharp, but you don't have a ton of depth there. So, yeah, he doesn't really fill a void for him as well. And then you give up those kind of assets for him. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to explain, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so that trade I thought was a very weird one. Portland did a couple of weird things. We'll get to that in a second. But either way, the Drew Holiday one I thought was bizarre. Boston gets an A in the trade for me. He got off his salary while getting a decent player back in return and somehow picks. I don't know how that happened, but either way, nice job by Boston. I don't get what Portland's doing. For Porzingis, this was a multiple team trade, which I think we might actually get back to, but we can talk about it because the Nets did use one of those picks in the draft. But the Celtics traded away Porzingis in a 3-team deal to Atlanta. You saw Boston get Niang and a second-round pick. Atlanta ended up getting a second-round pick and Porzingis, and the Nets picked up the really bad contract for Terrence Mann, but they also got a first-round pick in the NBA draft. So asking about Porzingis, Atlanta seems to want to move on from Capella. Feels like a done deal at this point. They have a Okongwu who's a better player at this stage in their careers, and Porzingis can give you a bit more floor spacing. He's never healthy, but we'll see how it works out for Atlanta. I'm going to ask you for this trade because the Nets clearly did it only for the pick. As for Boston, they wanted to get off the salary cap hell, basically, that they were in, and they wanted to get off the Porzingis deal. For Atlanta, I understand you basically bought low on it because you were able to get rid of Niang, and you ended up getting, of course, Porzingis. But do you like the move for Atlanta? Because based on how the season ended for Porzingis and how often he's hurt, I don't really know if he's worth even trading for in the first place. But I'm going to ask you, did you like the trade for any of these teams, or do you think it was kind of just a waste?
Actually, I like Atlanta with the Porzingis thing taking a swing. I mean, you don't really have a ton to lose, especially in a wide-open Eastern Conference. So I like again, this is all predicated on him being healthy. And if he's not, I mean, you're still in place. You didn't give up a ton of you didn't give up anything. I mean, Niang, okay, but it's not like you're losing sleep over what you gave up. You know what I'm saying? So I like it. Upside swing. I think he'll be really good in the pick and pop with Trey. Obviously, he has to stay on the floor. Offers a little bit of rim protection. Okongwu is going to be more so of the scoring threat on the inside. It'll be interesting to play those guys together with the type of spacing. Okongwu can occasionally knock down a shot or two from the outside as well. So I personally like the deal for Atlanta. I like everything Atlanta's done. I mean, I like the draft. I like what they've done in free agency. I know they're going to. So this might be something. It might be nothing, but the odds for Giannis to go to Atlanta, it started out at 30-1, and now it's at 6-1. Could be nothing. Could be something. It doesn't take a ton of money to move that, but that's something. And if you remember, the guy who scouted Giannis was in Atlanta when they found him, and they kind of hid him away so he couldn't work out for him. And then he got hired by Milwaukee, and they ended up taking Giannis. So he's got some, history there. So that's interesting. I will say that. But I like everything Atlanta's done. I think Atlanta's done pretty good. Obviously, it depends upon the health. But again, if he's not healthy, I mean, you don't lose anything.
Yeah, I feel like Atlanta will get into for the draft, but I do like their offseason as well. I'm willing to acknowledge the swing for Porzingis, hoping for upside, but I'm very skeptical of him actually being on the court. But I like their offseason. We'll get into that a bit more in detail for the draft. But I did want to also mention the Jordan Poole trade. New Orleans has also had a weird offseason. We'll get more into that during the draft, don't you worry. But for the actual trade, they ended up getting rid of McCollum, and they ended up getting back Jordan Poole. So they ended up getting Jordan Poole and Sadiq Bey and a second-round pick for McCollum, Olynyk, and a future second-round pick. We know that McCollum's an expiring deal. Poole does have a year after this current year. So they acquired an extra year, basically, of a starting shooting guard. I would say point guard, but Poole shoots too much, if we're being honest here. He's basically a shooting guard. So I'll ask you for this deal because I know New Orleans also did some draft stuff. I'll save it. If you're New Orleans, I know Joe Dumars got the job, and he's now kind of running things behind the scenes. Not a good thing. We'll just start off that. Let's start off there. But yeah. For the sake of the trade, I feel like it's a lateral move. I think you can argue McCollum and Poole are similar caliber players. I know that Poole's younger. You'd argue more upside. McCollum brings professionalism, though, and that's kind of the trade-off. But it feels like this trade is just rearranging chairs on the Titanic. Like, New Orleans isn't supposed to be that good, and we'll mention that later on for the draft trade because that's really going to come up later on. But it feels like this move doesn't actually accomplish anything besides paying an extra year for a shooting guard. I don't know how you feel about it, but Olynyk and Bey, I didn't really care either way. The deal was mostly for McCollum and Poole. And I don't think swapping McCollum for Poole does anything for you. Am I missing something? Or do I think that's a pretty fair analysis? Because it feels like both guys can be very streaky, I'll put it that way. McCollum has brought some professionalism, not much defense, and also we know that he's a guy who is not afraid to shoot the ball a lot, despite efficiency being a question mark. Poole's a lot worse in that area. He'll keep chucking, but he's younger. So I'll ask you if you like the move for New Orleans, if you hate the move, or if you're kind of just indifferent, because I think I'm in the indifferent camp. I really just don't care that much about this deal.
Indifferent, good word. That's a good word. That would be the word I would use. I don't think it makes them better. I don't think it makes them worse either. But I like Poole more than the average person probably.
He's fine.
Yeah, but I don't like him here because they're not a winning organization. So he's basically he's in the same. Now Washington's organization is better than New Orleans. I like the things that Washington are doing and the people that they've drafted and
they've had a very underrated offseason.
Yeah, so I just don't get it for New Orleans. I don't know what their direction is. And again, you bring in Poole. You talked about the CJ McCollum parallel, and if you look at the guard spot, I mean the guard / forward spot, it's a logjam. I mean, you got Jordan Hawkins there. You just drafted Fears, we'll talk about. You got, what's my guy's name? I forgot the other guard. Herb Jones, small, shooting guard, small forward type. Trey Murphy. You got all these type of similar players. He didn't really fill a void to me, and that's the issue. I do like Poole. I just don't like him here.
Yeah, I can understand that too. It feels like New Orleans just threw a bunch of guys together and they're going to hope for the best. Like a less talented Toronto in a way. Because Toronto has Quickly and Ingram, and they have a bunch of guys, and you're wondering why the hell are these guys together getting so much money?
They do the same thing. Thing.
Yeah, I feel like New Orleans we'll mention again later on, but I thought the trade I was indifferent to for me. I do want to point out one smaller trade, which I think makes absolutely no sense. We ended up seeing Lonzo get traded for Okoro, so he's headed to Cleveland, which means that you're probably going to see Ty Jerome on a different team next year. So that could be the backup point guard option, which I understand why Cleveland made that move, even though he's never healthy. When healthy, Lonzo does give you some good defense. You can use him in a late game situation if you want to sub out Garland for offense defense. For Chicago, why do you want Okoro? There are rumors you turned down a first-round pick to get Okoro. What are the Bulls doing?
They don't know. I don't know. They don't know. I've seen people put together a little trade. I mean, obviously not equal, but what they got. They traded Caruso away, they traded Lonzo away, they traded DeMar away, they traded Levine away, and show what they got, and it's ridiculous. It's
not pretty.
It's ridiculous. And you know what? I like the draft picks. I think Matas Bozelis is a good player. I think Noah Singay will be really good. But you got Patrick Williams. He's the same. Him and Isaac Okoro are about the same person.
It's not even about having Patrick Williams. They're overpaying Patrick Williams.
Yeah, I mean that too. I thought that was ridiculous. Listen, and I'm all for North Carolina guys getting their money, but he fleeced them pretty bad. And now I just don't know the direction they're going in. They're trying to get rid of Vooch. I don't understand anything that they're doing. Are they gonna they're not even. The problem is they're not bad enough to be low lottery, top five.
They're a playing team every year.
But they're not good enough to be a top 5 seed. So they're Chicago's really weird, a really weird run organization.
They're a terribly run organization. That's
great
what
fans.
You really have to say about it.
Great fans though.
Yeah, the fans deserve better.
They do.
But I do think when you're looking at the actual deal itself, Lonzo, I think, is objectively speaking a better player than Okoro. So why would you trade him for a worse player when you could have gotten a draft pick? I don't know if it was true or not. There were some rumors that a first-round pick was being dangled for Lonzo, and they turned it down in favor of getting an Okoro package, which I don't know if I actually believe, but I did hear a rumor about that. The Bulls, I don't know what they're doing. Lonzo, I actually don't even know why teams would fully want to trade for him because he's never healthy. I get the move for Cleveland because you wanted another point guard, especially if Jerome walks. Different type of point guard. At least he'll get some improved defense from Lonzo by comparison. But I like the move for Cleveland. I don't know what the hell Chicago's doing, but I wanted to mention that deal as well. And there was another deal that happened involving the Hornets and the Suns, because you ended up seeing Mark Williams get traded to the Hornets, or traded from the Hornets to the Suns mid-draft day. The Hornets got Misic, the first-round pick, which turned out to be Liam McNeely in the end of the first round, and a first-round pick in 2029. It feels like the Suns gave up a ton for me. I know Misic hasn't been that great, but you gave up 2 first-round picks for Mark Williams when Bradley Beal's still under contract? Like, what are you supposed to get out of this? I don't understand it, because the Suns, I don't want to get too into the draft, though. They drafted, of course, an actual center right after trading for Williams. So I don't know why you traded away 2 first-round picks to get a center when you were going to draft Malawak anyway. So I don't really understand what the Suns are doing, but the Hornets have had a pretty active offseason because they offloaded Mark Williams. They also ended up getting Colin Sexton. How? I have no idea. They gave up nothing in return for him. They got a pick.
They got a pick too. They got a pick with the Colin
None
Sexton.
of it makes any sense. But I want to ask you, though, for the Suns deal, starting off there, am I missing something? Because they have no picks. They just lost Durant. They have some weird trio now of Booker, Bradley Beal, unless they buy him out, and Jalen Green. And now you just throw in Mark Williams in there, and you gave up 2 first-round picks. What are the Suns doing?
Yeah, I don't really. It's people who actually like what the Suns are doing. I don't get it personally. 2 things that Matt Ishbia loves. Hiring Michigan State people, drafting Michigan State people. I
was going to say trading draft picks, but that works too.
Yeah, that too. But he loves Michigan State, and he loves Charlotte Hornets players, especially centers. You got Nick Richards, Mark Williams, and Nurkic, I think. Not Nurkic. What was the other?
Nick Richards, ended up drafting Malawak.
Mark Williams. And, they just love North Carolina.
They used to have Plumlee.
Yeah, Plumlee too. They just love North Carolina centers. I don't get what the Suns are doing. I don't think HBA knows what he's doing per se.
No. And there are rumors he was taking a step back. I'll tell you what, this smells a lot like an Ishbia trade because it makes no sense.
And then you got to deal with Bradley Beal, and then you draft you got 2 centers.
It's one thing if you traded for Williams and Malawak was off the board, and this was your backup plan to get a center. But how do you acquire Mark Williams and Malawak in the span of 15 minutes, and you give up draft picks?
Yeah, and my thing is, you have, I get it, 2 different types of big men, but Mark Williams and Malawak are basically the same. They came from Duke. I mean, they play the same way. Lob threats. Malawak is probably a better defender. But, they're the same type of center. So, maybe insurance for Mark Williams, but why would you trade for him?
Well, I think that the main difference, though, is defense. Malawak, despite not playing in the NBA yet, is significantly better defensively than Mark Williams.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that at all. But I don't know what the Suns are doing. And then the only draft pick out there, they drafted Rasheed Fleming, who I really like. But they drafted Kobe Bryant, who's a shooting guard. You just named out 3 shooting guards. How the hell is he going to get on the court?
Great question. They didn't think of that in the draft room.
They don't have a point guard. Rasheed Fleming, I get it. Hybrid 4.
That was a good deal anyway because he slid into the second round.
Yeah, I completely understand that, but I don't understand. Bryant's a good player. He's really good. He can shoot the hell out of the ball. But how the hell is he going to get on the court? You got 3 players that you're paying so much money to. One has a no trade clause. One you're going to extend, and the other, decent deal. But so you're going to play those guys. Who's going to play? How's he going to play?
It's definitely a good question, and there was a trade recently involving Sexton, which I have to go into detail on because I don't get this one either. So the Hornets acquired Sexton and a second-round pick in 2030 for Nurkic. And am I missing something? Nurkic has been washed for 3 years. What are we doing?
Jeff Peterson's the new Danny Ainge, man.
I guess. Apparently Ainge doesn't make the decisions anymore. They're letting his son do some stuff in the front office. But I don't understand how you ended up losing Sexton and a second-round pick to acquire this albatross contract in Nurkic. I don't get this at all. I get the argument is going to the draft briefly. Utah did draft Clayton, so they had a logjam at guard, and I get you wanted to offload some guys. They bought out Clarkson. I don't understand how Utah holds on to these players while trying to tank, and then they don't get anything back in return. You buy out Clarkson and you trade Sexton for peanuts. You could have traded them for the last 3 years for like actual potential assets. This is why Utah's in the basement, I guess. I don't get what I'm looking at, but good for Charlotte, I guess.
Yeah, well, they got 2 cracks at it. They'll get a chance to be, bad, and it be just their young players, so they don't get fined for it instead of intentionally tanking. And then they got a shot to get Carlos Boozer's kid, Cam Boozer, and then they got a shot to get DeBussy, who's in their backyard. So I can kind of see the vision for it.
The vision is tanking.
Yeah.
But I don't really understand how you got that out of the Sexton package when Sexton, when healthy, is actually pretty good.
He
actually improved the three-point shot, which was a serious flaw in his game. I thought he was solid last year. He was hurt a lot. He's always injured. But Nurkic, you couldn't get anything else? Really? Nurkic? All right, sure, whatever. But anyway, this might be why some teams in the basement stay in the basement, because the Jazz are poorly run. The Bulls are also terribly run. Portland's had a weird offseason. I'll get into that in a second with the draft, but New Orleans is a terribly run team, and they just got a new guy running the damn organization, and Joe Dumars stinks. So definitely a really interesting collection of trades. We'll get into the draft for the actual picks discussion, because there were some trades in there too. Bit of overlap, but I didn't want to mention it. Before we get into that, though, a reminder that you can definitely check out all of the content for SGPN by going to the different feeds, whether it's on Spotify, Apple, even if you want to go to the SGPN app. You go to every podcast episode on the network for free by subscribing to the SGPN feed. And remind you to get it wherever you do get your podcasts. Also, a reminder that brought to you by our sponsor, Circa Millions, Circa Survivor, because you think you know ball, you can prove it by entering the Circa football contest with $21 million in guaranteed prizes. No rake. If the entries go above the guarantee, extra money will go to the prize pool. Circa Millions, pick 5 teams ATS each week, or go for the ultimate sweat with Circa Survivor. There's even a Circa Grandissimo, a 100K entry Survivor contest. Yeah, I'm not going to be in that one, but I'm rooting for you. Anyway, you can register in person. You have to at Circa Sportsbook in Vegas. A great excuse to go. Sign up in Vegas and play from anywhere, because you can use SGPN's official proxy. Go to footballcontest.com with the promo code SGP to get $50 off your proxy fees. We're also brought to you by MyBookie, because available in a ton of locations. Use them for baseball, for WNBA, for Wimbledon, for golf, etc. You can also use them for football futures. Use them in a ton of locations. Use crypto for deposits, fast payouts. When you sign up, though, for your account, use code SGPN to get a special pick and to get a special 100% odds match up to 1K. Terms and conditions by MyBookie promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the NBA podcast. Went through a couple of trades that happened already. Time to move on into the actual draft discussion. So it was a weird draft. It was 2 days. Nobody watched day 2, but it was a 2-day event, which was something unique. Now, for the actual draft itself, to read off the top 10, I'm not going to read off all the picks. I'm sure most of you remember who got taken where, but Flagg went number 1. Harper went 2 to San Antonio. Edgecombe went 3. Knuppel ended up going 4. Bailey went 5 to Utah after his basically standoff attempt failed miserably, as Utah drafted him anyway. Trey Johnson ended up getting drafted 6th to Washington. You saw Fears go to New Orleans at 7. Demon, a bit of a reach there, but the Nets went 8. You saw Murray Boyles, who got drafted to Toronto and cursed immediately because he didn't want to be there. Malawak got drafted 10th. And you had a trade up by Memphis to draft Coward with the 11th pick. Now, I'm going to start off with the actual top 10. Were there any surprises to you that something either with a reach or just a destination? What was the biggest surprise to you in the top 10?
Demi at 8. I thought that was way high. I think I had him in like 19-20 range.
I think most people had him in the teens.
Yeah, 1920, I think is where I had them like on my board, but like I mean, a lot of the stuff is just predicated on. I mean, I know we'll talk about like winners and losers, so I don't want to go into the.
No, you can
to too much, but like, yeah, I thought you could have got him later, and like if you were gonna reach, I would have reached for a little bit more upside. I mean, what Yegor is like. What he is. He's a great passer. Good positional size. He can't shoot it. Although
Apparently he improved in that in the combine, etc. Well, it's different in games, of course.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Yeah,
at least he's been working on the shot.
Yeah, if you shoot it well in workouts, then that just
it's better than missing it all in workouts.
Yeah, but that didn't stop Kyler Murray boards from going ninth though. So yeah, it just depends on how you look at it. But I think Yegor was probably the sat up in my seat a little bit like
Well, to ask you though, since it was a reach though, do you like him as a prospect, or do you think that even though it was a reach, there is some upside that makes this pick not as disastrous as people claim?
Like him better in an organization where he doesn't have to be a primary ball, and maybe that's why the Nets did a lot of what they did as far as like drafting different types of guards. But I don't like him as much as others do. I just think it has to be a better fit, because it was a time whenever he was in school where it was like, oh yeah, he's definitely like coming back to school. He played really well in the NCAA tournament. He was more aggressive, but it was times where he doesn't like shoot the ball. If you pressure him a little bit, he kind of can fold. But he's got good size. I mean, he can pass the ball good off the pick and roll. But again, as a lead ball handler, like, I'm not sure, especially at this level when, defenders are a lot bigger, a lot stronger.
Do you think he's a point guard?
Yeah, I do think he's a point guard. He has the skill set to play point guard, but I don't know.
People question the handle. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I think he has to be like Josh Giddey. I think he has to be like secondary ball handler. I don't think he's a primary ball handler. I think he could be on the court with another ball handler where he's getting the secondary defender or third defender. Like, I'm not sure if he can be like full blown, like Dylan Harper can do both. Like, that's a perfect example. Dylan Harper can handle the ball, he can play off ball. I don't think Yegor can play on the ball full time. That's my only issue, especially taking him that high.
Yeah, so I'm a bit higher on Demon than other people. Maybe it's a basketball IQ thing, but I know the passing ability is really the main pro that people talk about with him, because he's one of the best passers in the entire draft.
For sure.
Probably is the best passer in the entire draft. I liked him at BYU. Now, the shot, I acknowledge, was not great in the back half. He had some injuries, and there were some splits that were brought up on social media before and after the injury, and how his shot fell off a cliff afterwards. But I like him. He's a 6'8", 6'9" point guard. There's a lot of upside there. Now, Giddey's the main comp. I'm fine with that. We saw Giddey have a monster season for Chicago until we saw Caruso win a ring, and suddenly people are lower on Giddey again. But Giddey had a great season. Now, it took a couple of years for him to get to that point, and I do think that's why you could argue it's a good destination for Demon, because he can try to blossom into a solid pro with no pressure at all for the next couple of years. And it might be a trial by fire, where they'll throw him out there, he'll get a bunch of minutes, nobody's going to care, because the team's going to stink anyway, and you learn from your mistakes. And you can argue that it's better to get a lot of experience and reps on a bad team than sitting on the bench as a ninth man playing 10 minutes a game. So I was fine with the pick. I think it was early. I also like Demon more than other people. I recognize the flaws there. I do have faith in the Nets player development program, which has actually been pretty good. You look at who the Nets have drafted for the last few years, a lot of guys who can really, once again, play in rotations. And the Nets have been pretty underrated at making actual rotation players out of draft picks. So I do think that Demon is in a pretty good organization, actually, to succeed. It does feel like with the Nets, going a bit more big picture here, they had 5 picks, and the public hated 4 of them.
Yeah.
Shout out to Pal. Pal was a pretty, I'd say, universally either like or lukewarm pick. I was fine with it.
I love Pal.
The Wolf one, I think people like the value. They question the actual, I'd say, upside of the prospect in the NBA. I like Wolf. I don't know why I would be mad at a center who can actually handle and rebound. Even if he's like a Kelly Olynyk type, that's fine. Olynyk's been in the league for double-digit years. I'm fine with that. I think that's a pretty decent comp, in my opinion. Olynyk can handle a little bit. You don't feel great about it per se. He can pass somewhat. I think Wolf's got more passing skills. But I think in Michigan, he was a solid player. They basically had no guards, and they ended up using him and Golden just running big pick and rolls the entire time, and it worked. But I like Wolf. I think that was a good value pick for the Nets. You had a couple of other options, European guys. You had Traore, who apparently was the fastest guy in the entire draft. He's apparently just an absolute gazelle out there. So we'll see how that translates. And you have Saraf, who was the Israeli guy who was really good in juniors and under 18. I believe he won MVP. But there are rumors he might stay overseas for a year to get some potential development, kind of like what OKC did with Topic this past year. So I'm going to ask you, because before we get into winners and losers, a lot of people had the Nets in the loser category because they had 5 picks. They took a bunch of guards, and people kind of didn't like the either spot they took the guys in or the actual fit and I'd say, once again, tendency to draft a ton of the same position with the same flaws because a lot of these guys can't shoot.
Yeah.
I was more lenient on the Nets draft, not even as a Nets fan, but recognizing the vision that this organization has. A lot of people will judge draft picks based on trying to improve the roster immediately. Can this guy be a plug and play? Will he make your team better? They don't understand the Nets aren't trying to be good. The Nets are trying to tank. They're trying to finish with a top 5 pick, maybe 2 of them if Phoenix falls apart, to try to get either the star, who, by the way, I don't know if you've been watching the international stuff right now. AJ? He looks really, really good. AJ looks really good out there, but he might be number 1. Boozer might be number 1.
He's good.
It's supposed to be a very, very good draft class.
And Peterson is good.
And Peterson, too. So the point is, you're looking at a situation where a lot of people looked at the Nets picks and said, well, these guys aren't going to be ready to play now. That's the point. The Nets are using this year as basically a trial run for a bunch of young kids to get reps while this team loses 60-plus games and they try to win the lottery. So I was fine with the draft approach. The approach was, we're supposed to be bad. We acknowledge we're going to be bad. And if we win some ping pong ball luck, we're getting a start. That was how I looked at the Nets draft. I know that you can argue that the picks themselves, if you wanted to go for example, KJ instead of going for Traore, that was a common complaint that people had. I think people liked Miami's draft because they had a guy who was supposed to go in the top 10 fall into their laps, which I think people didn't exactly see coming. But I do think for the Nets, for example, I was fine with it. Are you a fan of KJ? Do you think the Nets should have taken him, or do you think that the Nets kind of got decent upside? Because the European guys are always tricky to break down because they're playing in random leagues. They got to come over. They got to adjust to NBA life, and they'll go from there. I can't really judge the Saraf and the Traore picks until I see them actually play in a Nets uniform. So I'm kind of indifferent on 2 of those picks for now. I think Demon's an interesting prospect with upside. Wolf, I like the spot. And I think Powell's a fine 3-and-D guy. So I was fine with their draft. It wasn't an amazing draft. I'm not going to say they won. They also had a bunch of guys who got drafted right before their pick that they might have been going after, which people forget about, because Demon ended up going 9, but you saw Fears go 7. Demon went 8. Fears was a common thought for the Nets. He went 7. Bailey went 5. Trey Johnson went 6. A lot of the guys the Nets might have been targeting were just off the board. And they already had Claxton. They were going to bring Sharp back. They have Clowney as well. They didn't want another center. So they didn't want to take Malawak. So I can understand why they went in this direction. I'll ask you what your thoughts are, because I think the Nets draft wasn't great, but I don't have it as a loser of the draft, in my opinion. It's too early to tell.
Yeah, so 2 things. One thing, I did have the Nets as one of my losers, but that's just so because like I can understand the long term, and I can understand taking swing. I mean, you got 5 picks, you're going to take a swing.
That's the point. They went for the upside swings, knowing if it doesn't work out immediately, we're trying to be bad anyway.
Yeah.
So I understood the vision. Other teams, I can say I didn't get their vision. I understood what the Nets were trying to do.
Yeah, and so like long term, I get it because you're gonna just throw those young guys out there, and you have they're gonna have to learn on the fly to get a bunch of reps. But I did like the Drake Powell pick. I like Wolf.
For the spot, they got Wolf in.
Yeah, I like Wolf. I think that's a positive thing. But again, the 3 guards, I'm really just not. I'm not.
And none
of
them can shoot.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the redundancy there. If you wanted, I would have took Yakachonis at 8. And then if you wanted to take another one, I would have took Saraf. It's just so many different things that if you want to take a swing, I would take a big swing and not just I think that these players are fine. I don't have an issue with them, but they all have similar issues. Like Demon can't shoot. I mean, all 3 of them can't shoot. So, Traore can't go left. He's pretty predictable with his dribble.
I really don't know much about.
I
don't really know much about Traore and about.
I watched a ton of them. Traore was supposed to be top 10-ish last year.
Yes, I know he was originally like a preseason top 5.
Yeah.
And he was really bad in France, and he slid down some boards.
Yeah.
I heard he's fast as hell.
Yeah, he wasn't bad. He just didn't play because, you know, they give, like, it doesn't matter how you project, you know, to them overseas in some places. They just
go by seniority.
Yeah, they play the older prospects or the older guys. So that's the reason why he fell a little bit. So, I mean, I just don't like the redundancy there. I thought that you could have took, you know, a couple of guys that were different. Like, I would have took Kasparis at 8. And if you wanted Dimon, I could kind of see both of them together. But again,
there were also rumors the Nets maybe tried to trade down, didn't get what they wanted, and that was an issue too. So you don't know what happened behind the closed doors. I doubt the Nets wanted to take all 5 picks going into the draft, and it just didn't work out the way they wanted to.
Yeah,
so they ended up picking everybody. But
I like the Nets forecasting. Like, they're funny story. I met their general manager and didn't know who he was for like 2 years. No, I'm sorry, their assistant general manager.
Oh, okay.
He was ironically he was at a Drake Powell game. Drake Powell's from North Carolina. Their assistant GM, BJ, is from North Carolina.
Okay.
So Drake went to school not too far from where I am.
Did you like him in North Carolina? I feel like they didn't use him that much, but when they did, I actually liked his role in the team.
I love Drake, but like Hubert Davis didn't do him any favors.
No, not at all.
But when he was unlocked was when he was at the 3 guard playing his natural position. He's not a 4 or 5. So
yeah.
But yeah, I seen him there watching Drake. This was Drake's junior year actually, and you know, just to see that come to fruition, it was kind of like weird, like seeing it. But yeah, I do like the Drake pick. I like the Wolf pick. The other 3, I don't really like at all. But again, if you're gonna parlay that into a top 3, top 4 pick next year, then cool. But having those guys go out, play, I mean, you
once again, Soroff might not even report this year, so that might be just something down the road.
That makes the pick even worse.
Well, you can argue that's also kind of what they had in mind because they're trying to be bad.
Yes,
so,
that too.
There you go. But the point is, I have the Nets having a below-average draft. I don't have them being a winner, but there were a couple of teams that I thought were significantly worse during the draft that I was focusing more on.
Yeah.
So if you want to segue into the actual winners and losers of the draft, I say we do the losers first, actually, because we just talked about the Nets. I know you had them on there.
Yeah.
I think we're going to agree about the biggest loser, but I got to at least bring it up. It's New Orleans, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, so I will say this. Yes, they are because of the Derek Queen situation. Not the pick. Like, I like
the trade. The trade itself makes them automatically the biggest losers of the entire draft.
And I love Fears. I think Fears has the potential to be like an all-star level type of player, borderline. So Fears is good. He fits that.
He also can't shoot.
Yeah, but so again, I think he can. I think the shot will develop a little bit more. He took some questionable shots, and he was doing a ton. I mean, he's supposed to be he's supposed to be getting ready for college, not being drafted. So he's got a lot more growing to do. So I love Fears. I love the fit for Fears. And I think you can get into the Derek Queen thing, which is why we think they're the biggest losers here.
Okay, so that's actually one thing I'll push back on, because I do think that Fears has talent. Of course, we know that the shot's a work in progress. Is he a good fit in New Orleans? You throw him next to Jordan Poole and Zion Williamson? Where's he going to get his shots?
Yeah, that's a good point. He's a different type of player, though, because he doesn't have to solely rely on the jumper. Yeah. Like
is he a bench guy rookie season?
Maybe to start off until he gets his feet under him, but he is relentless at getting to the rim. I'm talking about relentless getting to the rim. He can pass.
That's the problem, though. Now you have Quinn, you have Queen, and you have Zion.
Yeah.
So I don't know if your spacing is going to be terrible or not. Fears can't really shoot, and in hierarchy, he's behind Poole, he's behind Zion. So I don't think it's actually a great fit. But we'll see what happens down the road. But I think Fears is a pretty interesting prospect. I like his athleticism, of course, but I didn't like the fit. When your spacing is going to be terrible, most likely, for the season. So I had problems there. I got to mention the trade, because this is the main reason why they're the biggest losers. And I'm sure you've listened to other podcasts that have talked about it, but I got to hammer it home because it is just an absolutely insane trade. So the Hawks, in my opinion, the biggest winners of the offseason so far, at least they're up there, with, once again, you mentioned the Hornets in there. You mentioned the Wizards, who are also good winners so far. Spurs had a pretty good offseason so far. They didn't do anything. They just had two good players fall into their laps. But still, for the Queen trade, New Orleans ended up trading up about 10 spots with Atlanta. And they gave up not just the pick they had about 10 spots after. They gave up a first-round pick next year, unprotected, to move up to take Queen. Now, there's a lot to unpack there. First thing is the actual fit with Queen, and if we actually liked Queen as a prospect. Now, he had the game winner against Colorado State in the tournament. Very solid player. Do I think he'll be able to play good defense on the perimeter in the NBA? No, I don't. I think he's slow-footed. I think he'll get killed in pick and roll. I think it's going to be a problem for him. Good athlete, though. Underrated passer from the low post. So he definitely has some role or some opportunities to showcase the skill set. However, you drafted him to pair him next to Zion, which I think is a really bad pairing for the sake of spacing. I'll ask you what your thoughts are on Queen first as a prospect. We'll get into the trade in a second. But from an actual player perspective, because one counter argument Pelicans fans will make is, what if Queen is really good? Is the trade suddenly a good deal? No, it's not. You still give up way too much to move up. But do you like Queen in the NBA? Or are you lower on him? Because I'm actually quite low on Queen.
Yeah, I'm higher on Queen than most people. Well, I guess I had him I think I had him 10th on my board, 10th or 11th.
I think he's fine. I just have questions about his overall game translating to the NBA with the spacing.
Yeah, well,
and defensively, can he switch out to guards in the perimeter?
No, he can't. He can't do that.
That's my problem.
Yeah,
that's a serious flaw in today's NBA with centers. You need to be able to switch.
Yeah, I thought he was really spot dependent. I thought he had to go to a good, the spot that I had circled for him was Portland, because Portland's really good defensively. They have decent spacing. They have Klingon, as well as Tom Lord who can switch and protect the rim, where he is, kind of play the dunker spot and guard some of those non-shooters on the perimeter if he has to. And he can score. He can score the ball. I love Derek Queen. I just don't I hate the fit for him here. I thought he worked well in Portland. I thought he worked well in Chicago. Certain spots, I think he was better in. This is not one of those spots because you don't have spacing. Zion, Yves Missy, you don't have a ton of shooting on the floor. I mean, Trey Murphy, Jordan Hawkins, but they're not going to play at the same time a lot. So it's hard to kind of picture what it'll look like with no spacing when his best attribute is in that restricted area because he can't shoot. So that's the biggest issue. But I do love Queen. I just don't love this fit.
Yeah. Now, the trade, once again, was looking at a trade up by New Orleans. They traded the 23rd pick and a first-round pick for next year, which is also the most favorable between New Orleans and Milwaukee. So even if New Orleans is actually pretty good, surprisingly, they can just get the Milwaukee pick instead. So you gave up both of those, turned out to be Asanul, who you can argue is an interesting prospect, but I'm not as high on him, but still, it doesn't really matter. Point is, you got a guy who kind of slid in the draft and a first-round unprotected pick from next year for Queen, who's a really bad fit with your overall roster. I think Joe Dumars, after watching him destroy the Pistons for about a decade and a half, based on how the ending of that tenure went, the fact that he got another job and immediately had this crazy trade that everyone hates, I think kind of sums up why the Pelicans are a joke of a franchise. I think they're the worst run franchise in the entire league. And this trade is absolutely abysmal. I think the Portland trade for Drew Holiday was also really bad, but at least you get some mentorship there. You get some type of maturity if you end up keeping him.
Well,
so
you get a proven player. So it's just the reason why we hate it is because of the salary, not because of the player. You're getting a proven player and who can do things.
It's the salary attached to it. So I think Portland's trade was really bad too. But this trade makes no sense. Especially for your first draft as the GM of the team, they're basically making this deal because the Pelicans believe that their pick won't be that good. And that's why they gave it up. In the Western Conference, where Zion barely plays, how is this team going to avoid the play-in and be an actual playoff team? They can't. So they're a play-in team basically at ceiling, and at floor, you're a lottery team, and you handed out a free lottery pick in an elite draft to take a center in a lineup that he doesn't fit in. Is that fair?
Yeah, 100%. Man, I think so. I'm usually I don't really punish teams for doing like trading to get certain players. Like with the, I'll take you back. Like when we talked about the Magic, I think we talked about the Magic, me and you.
Yeah.
Like I didn't mind that. That's fine. But the thing is, the Magic are good. Like we know that they're going to be able to. That we know that pick is likely, like highly unlikely to be, in the lottery. Like unless something goes completely wrong. That's where I can get it. So the picks for Desmond Bane, I'm fine with because you're in win now mode. You have two really good players. You added another one in Bane, so you're not going to bring it. You don't even play the rookies that you drafted in the past 2 or 3 years. So I can understand the logic behind that.
There's an infrastructure in place, and you've proven for 2 straight years you're a playoff team that in theory could be one piece away. Exactly. I don't think they are one piece away, but they have something already built, a foundation that counts for something.
Right.
New Orleans has nothing.
Yeah, with New Orleans, like we know Zion's going to miss time. We just don't know how much. So it's just simply like you're one Zion injury and him missing 2.5 months from being back in the lottery. Like that's the part that I don't get. Like you know you're not contending. Like this is the Western Conference where you gotta be really, really good consistently. Like we saw when teams like look at Memphis, for example. Like they were the 2 seed, and in the matter of like a month, play in. Like that's how tough it is in the Western, and it's only going to get tougher with a lot of these guys moving around and guys getting better. Like, so I don't get it from that standpoint. Like, and I'm not a guy who really harps on teams for trading draft picks. But this deal was an F. Yeah, this is a disastrous trade for New Orleans. So I think that is definitely where I'll start for the losers. New Orleans is the biggest team loser of the entire draft because that trade is moronic. There's no way to go around it besides at least acknowledging Joe Dumars has not learned anything after getting fired from Detroit. Moving on, though, I'll ask you your other losers for the draft. I have one other one, but I'll ask you to go, and we probably have the same team. Who are you going to go with as your other loser for a team? Phoenix. I mean,
okay. I did not have Phoenix, but okay, I want to hear your case.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it. Like, you got the double center thing to do the same thing. You got to overlap at the shooting guard position.
Within 15 minutes, you drafted 2 centers that do almost the same thing.
Right, and you got 3 shooting guards. You draft another shooting guard. Like, I mean, I just don't know. I don't know what their direction is. I really don't understand what they're doing with their team. I understand you recoup some of the like picks and different things like that, but as far as your current roster, like if you laid out the roster for the Suns right now,
it's bad.
It's like you got a log jam at both. You got most of your play, like 65-70% of your roster is in 2 like positions.
And you have no point guard.
That's horrible. And you got a rookie as your small forward. Like what? Like I don't understand anything that they did. The thing is, so with this draft, so it was a lot for me, draft wise. Like loved the player, hated the fit. Like with Queen, love the player, hate the fit. Like it's a lot of that with me. But with the Suns, like what are you actually doing? Like Kaspar Shakatonis was right there. You need a point guard. He's big. He's physical. He can play off ball because he's not the best with pressure and all that. Mm-hmm. So you let Devin Booker initiate like he was right there. Even
Jalen Green, if you want to.
Yeah, he's right there. Like, but you take Malawach, and then you trade for Mark Williams. So I don't get it. I know a lot of teams. I mean, a lot of people like what Phoenix did. I don't. I hate it.
I think they like Malawach's upside. The problem is I'm not extremely raw, and he has no offensive talent.
Yeah, I'm not a guy.
So you have to build him up from scratch, basically. Yeah. I think he's going to have a pretty rough rookie season because he's only there for defensive impact. But he has no offensive talent. It's not his fault. Take the basketball late. So I think eventually he can maybe turn into a decent offensive player, maybe. I see him being a Capella guy. He's only going to catch lobs. He'll never score for himself, but he'll block 2 shots a game, and he'll also be a good rim runner for alley-oops.
Yeah, but
is that a fair comp? I see him being Capella.
So okay, that's everything you just named is perfect. Like I agree with all of those things.
He's multiple years away from that happening.
That too, but also, who the hell is going to get him the ball in those lobs? They don't have a point guard.
I'm assuming Booker's going to be the point guard this season, right?
Yeah, I mean Booker's not.
I'm not saying it's going to work. I'm saying that's probably what they have.
Yeah, but my thing, like Malawach is point guard dependent. Like you have to like feed him. Like you have to give him the ball. Like he's
that's
not.
Why I compared him to Capella.
Yeah, he's not going to do a ton. So like, what? Like who's going to do that for you? If you got Booker facilitating, like, I mean that's a lot. I want Booker scoring. I don't want him facilitating.
Yeah. So I'm going to go with my other loser. Then we'll get into the winners quickly. I did Portland.
Oh, you don't like Portland?
I think the Hansen pick was an extreme reach.
Yeah, it was.
Look, I understand that they had a logjam at center. They bought out Ayton. So at least they got him off the roster. But, I mean, damn, they paid money to get him off the books. Another guy they might have been able to trade a year or two ago and decided to keep him for no reason. You have Klingon, who I think had an interesting rookie season. Good defensively, no offensive talent, randomly shoots some threes on occasion. Why? I don't know. But now you have Hansen, who people were kind of high on at the Combine. And, of course, it feels like he's a foreign center who, maybe has a certain gear that people haven't seen yet, and he'll be a really good player. I don't understand the center rotation that Portland's trying to run out there. And the fact that you took a projected second rounder with this selection, I just think is extremely ballsy. For the Nets one, for Demon, for example, at least he was supposed to be maybe 10 picks after, give or take. You took Hansen at 16, who's projected to be a mid-second rounder. Like, I think that's just an insane reach to me. Now, the draft pick makes more sense when they got rid of Ayton, because at least they were going to get rid of a center on the team to replace him with somebody else. But Portland's deal, I thought, was interesting because he might have upside. He's 7'1". We'll see how he does, but I do think it's going to be a massive work in progress. He's a project, and I'm skeptical on whether or not you should have taken him this early or if you could have potentially traded back and gotten him later on, because it felt like he was on nobody's radar to go 16, and he went 16. So yes, if he turns into a good player, it's a fine pick. But for the spot itself, it was easily the biggest reach on the entire board in the first round, including Demon to the Nets. So I have Portland as a loser, but only because that felt like an extremely premature selection that you could have gone maybe 10, 15 picks down the road.
I completely agree with you. I love Yang. I had him actually in the first round, but I had him going to Brooklyn.
I'm sure you had him late first. You had him 27. Yeah,
27. Yeah, 27.
They got him at 16.
Yeah, and I thought he would fit. I thought that's a swing that I wanted Brooklyn to take. Like with Portland, it doesn't make a ton of sense, to be honest, because they still got Klingon, they still got Williams. But
you're also allegedly viewing yourself as a playoff team because you just acquired Drew Holiday's contract, and apparently you're going for it. So you're going for a potential play-in spot, yet you draft a project center who might not play. Yeah, I'm getting mixed signals from the front office.
Yeah, I can agree. I can agree with you there. The only I didn't put him as a. I guess they could have been a loser. It was a humongous reach.
They weren't as big of a loser as New Orleans, for example, but I had to mention it for the actual spot and for the Holiday trade as well. If you want to merge that into it, then they're easily a loser.
Okay, yeah.
Before the draft, I was lower on their draft than most teams.
Yeah, that's fine. Just because of the reach. Yeah, that's fine. I can agree.
So there you go. For the winners, though, before we actually get into the winners, a reminder they're brought to you by our sponsor, which is Longer Fantasy, because they're doing Best Ball, which is happening all summer long. Join Best Ball Mania for a chance to win $15 million in prizes, including $2 million for first place. No waiver wire, no arguments about trades. Best Ball is the best way to play fantasy football. Also, use it for Pick'em. You can sign up, though, for your new account with the code NBSGPN. You get a special pick every time that offer up to $1K in bonus cash on fantasy promo code NBASGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm because they have a game-changing feature called Power Trends, where they detect patterns that can use Rhythm's models to help you find props that have a ton of value. And a reminder, they're updated every day. Use them on Rhythm only. No touts, no noise. It's just great overall picks. Download the app, check out Power Trends, start betting smarter. Also try to free for a week, but it's a 7-day free trial. There's sportsgaming.com Rhythm to get your 7-day free trial. Welcome back, everyone, to the Again podcast. Went through the losers for the draft. Time to move on into the actual winners of the draft. I did specify we are not picking Dallas. Taking Cooper Flagg number 1 is not an impressive feat for you. I'm not counting you as a winner. I hate it when people do that. Who won the draft? Well, the team that got the number 1 player. Thanks. That's really doing a lot there. Like, no, that doesn't count. You have to make an actual tough decision at one point in your draft. So for the winners, I'll go first. Atlanta was on that list, mainly because if you're going to fleece New Orleans, you're going to be a winner. It's just how it goes. Now, do I think their overall draft pick that they got in that deal is a great player? I'm not that high on Newell. I think he's okay. I'm not sold on him entirely. To be honest, it doesn't matter because you got an extra first-round pick that could be a lottery pick in a much better draft next year. I thought that they handled the situation very well. I like their offseason. Yes, Porzingis might have been a stab, but I think it made sense based on how open the conference is, what they actually had to give up, not much in the deal, including the trade. I got Atlanta in there. I like their offseason. So that would be my first team.
Yeah, I love Atlanta's offseason too. If you put in,
were they one of your winners?
Yeah, well, they weren't one of the ones I was going to list. I only had 2 that I was going to list because I
merging with the trade. I have to include them.
Yeah. But I like that. And Newell will be fine for them.
I think he's fine. I don't really have much of a thought on him as a player. He's fine.
He'll be fine. I had them picking him as well. He can play right up the street. So my biggest winner, Charlotte Hornets, man. Charlotte Hornets had a great draft.
That was one of my winners too.
Yeah, they had a great draft, man. They got 2 shooters, 2 guys in the first round that can do what they need them to do. Their floors are really high. I know McNeely struggled with the movement shooting, and some of the shooting didn't translate as much as people would like. But again,
he was playing the wrong role in UConn.
Right. He's playing a completely different role here. He's going to come off the bench. He's going to be asked to play off movement, stand still shooting. He can shoot the ball standing still. It's just the movement stuff. Creating off the dribble is not his thing. Knipple, one of the highest floors in the draft. That probably includes Cooper Flagg. I think we pretty much know what we're going to get with Khan from day one. Multi-layered player. I love the fit there. And then they get a point guard, backup point guard, and Sion James, who played with Knipple. So the transition there between those 2 guys, chemistry there between those 2 guys are going to be really good. I think Sion James is a low-level type of player who can play defense. He can run an organization. He's shown that he's able to play a role. He was the starting point guard on that loaded Duke team, so he can play a role. He can knock down open shots. He plays defense. He's tough. Good backup guard. And Kalkbrenner. Kalkbrenner is like a 3-time or 4-time defensive player of the year in the Big East.
Yeah,
he's going to.
He's the definition of drop coverage. But yes.
Yeah, absolutely. But he's not like he progressed as an offensive player so much. He was even started shooting threes in the last 2 years. Obviously, well coached at Creighton. I think it was a home run draft for the only problem. I like Sion. I would have taken Proctor over Sion if I was them. That's the only issue. That's the only issue I have. I would have took. They took the wrong Duke guard. I'm not going to say it's wrong, but I'm saying I would prefer to take Proctor just because of the shot creation. He can play on or off the ball. He's proven that. But I kind of get what you're getting out of Sion. You want low quality. Low maintenance type of guy, and I think Sion feels that better defender as well. But I love the Hornets; they were one of my top winners.
Yeah, so I do want to ask you because there was one other team. I had Charlotte as my biggest winner, especially if you throw in the Sexton trade that happened. I think that they were the biggest winner so far for the actual 100%. Roster building they had.
100%.
A lot of people liked Utah because they got Bailey
winner.
And because they got Clayton. I like Clayton. Having said that, there is some subjectivity here because I'm not a fan of Bailey at all. Bailey is a guy who has upside. I think that he is a guy who does not create much separation. Yes, he's a tough shot maker. Being a tough shot taker is also not a great sign because you're creating no separation off the dribble. I think that's a problem too. I hated the management decision that he had where they were trying to maneuver which teams would draft him, and Ainge said, we don't care, we're taking you anyway. Then he held out for 2 hours and decided to eventually show up anyway. So I think Bailey's going to be a massive headache because I think that his actual representation is a joke, and I think that I was lower on him as a player than most. So I don't have Utah, actually, as one of my winners. I just am not as high on Bailey as other people. I like what Utah did, taking a swing on Bailey, who could be a guy, but I'm lower on Bailey anyway, so I wasn't going to pick him as a winner. But I like the combo of getting Clayton and Bailey as an influx of young talent. That could be a solid, once again, kind of rebranding of this team. That's why they traded away Sexton. Got a terrible package for, but the argument was you have Clayton now, so you don't need two small guards. But I'm not going to pick Utah. I am going to go San Antonio. I like their draft. They got Harper. Really no credit there. Second pick, it's fine. I think that he's going to be a very good player. But you got Bradley later on, who I think was viewed as being a potential fringe top 10 pick. You could argue that's a little bit high, but I think some people might have had him in the top 10, top 12, and he ended up going 14th. I think he's a solid player. I think he can give you a lot of versatility. He's 6'7". He can play defense. He can shoot. I think he fits in well with Fox and with Harper, and if you want to throw in Wemby there, I like the fit with this team. And the Spurs just had him fall into their laps. So I think for the sake of winning drafts based on picks, I'll go San Antonio because I like Harper, I like Bradley, and most importantly, I like the fit of those guys with the team. If you're concerned about Harper and Fox, you can still trade Fox. That's fine. You can still move on from Fox there. But I like San Antonio's draft. I thought they got two good players that really doing much besides just accepting who fell into their laps. It felt like the Ravens in a way, where you look up and you're like, how'd they get that guy? Like, it just felt like they didn't do anything, and they got the players they needed and wanted entering the draft. So I have the Spurs in there. Agree or disagree?
Well, I'll tell you this. I'm not as high on Bryant as everybody else. Like,
I love the fit, though, with that team.
Yeah, I think my thing is, like, is he going to play, like, right away? Is he going to develop? Like, what? Because you got, if you look at that position. I mean, you got Barnes, you got Vassell, you got Johnson, you got Sohan, you have like.
I still don't really know what Sohan is at this point in his career, but it's intriguing.
Yeah, he is.
I could care less. I could care less about Harrison Barnes, but
yeah, but I mean, you got four guys in front of you, and you got Dylan Harper, like, who's going to see some minutes. So my thing is, like, are you going to play? He didn't have enough production for me to go that high. I mean, I think I had him 21, like, on my big board. But
I think it goes back to the hierarchy thing, though, because with Fox and Wemby, he's not going to take many shots anyway. The thing is, can you do the small stuff, the intangibles? Can you be a glue guy on this team trying to make a potential leap into the playoffs? I think he has the skill set to do that, where even if he doesn't score, he's still a valuable rotation piece because of the length and the physicality.
Yeah. I just, like, I'm not disagreeing with you. Like, here's
the subjectivity thing, though.
Here's my thing. I think Drake Powell's better than him. I think Drake Powell is better than him.
Okay.
I think he was better than him in college. I think he's a better defender. Like, so Carter can protect the rim a little bit better, but, like, when you sit down, like, and guard, like, Drake is a better defender. Now, help side, Carter is a bit, but, like, I would put Drake on for the Nets, I bet that they put him on the best player. He's that good defense. I thought he was that good in high school defense. Like, I thought he was an NBA level defender in high school. And I don't think that's going to change. So I think I would prefer Drake over him. Now, granted, Drake didn't probably shoot, but it's lower volume. Like, Carter was like analytics darling. Like, all the analytics love him because of the small sample size. And you're not, like, the usage was, him and Drake's usage was, not far apart, but again, Drake was playing out of position, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I thought Carter, if he was, like, that level of a player, I thought he should have been playing more. It was Arizona didn't have a small forward. Like, so, you know what I'm saying? Like, I kind of question that, but I trust, like, one of my cousins is a big San Antonio Spurs fan. He asked me how I feel about it, and I told him, like, I'm not a big fan of Carter Bryant, but I'm a big fan of what the Spurs do as an organization to develop their guys into these types of players.
I think he fits the timeline that they're on right now,
and that's
which I think matters.
Yeah, and I can't be mad at it.
By the way, we're going to end the show because we're going to, I think, run out of winners unless you had another team you wanted to mention.
I'll mention it. I mean, Utah was another one of my winners, but Cedric Coward to Memphis. I love Memphis's draft.
Yeah, I'm happy you mentioned that because they were aggressive and traded up. I like it. And they traded away Bane. They got a Bane replacement.
Love it.
And I think it's a solid move.
Yeah, love it. And I think he's going to bring the best out of Gigi and all those other wings to make them play at a higher level because Coward will bring it. I think Coward will be their starting small forward next year. And he's going to play really, really well.
And he's another guy with a limited sample last year.
But your Nets just got Michael Porter Jr. So
I know. I was going to end the show, and I was going to segue into a brand new trade that actually just happened about 5 minutes ago.
Yes,
the Nets, sticking with the idea of accepting bad contracts for draft picks, ended up trading away Cam Johnson to the Nuggets for Porter Jr. and a 2032 unprotected first-round pick. First thoughts as a Nets fan, I can't stand Michael Porter Jr., but this team is trying to be terrible, as I've said before. So this does fit the type of ideology this team is supporting, which is be really bad, try to end up getting some draft capital out of it, and we'll go from there. I think it's a great deal for Denver. I don't have much else to add, honestly, because I feel like most people are expecting a rant from me because I'm very anti-Porter Jr., and now he's on my favorite team. My team is supposed to be bad. Like, I'm not trying to expect much out of my team anyway. I need to see the Porter Jr. contract at this point.
It's not
to see
good,
how many
brother.
years he has left.
It's not
at
good.
this point. What do you say?
It's not good.
I know it's not good. I just want to see how bad it actually is.
Yeah. I mean, but, we probably can make a whole, man, we've been on here for an hour.
Okay, so his contract is not that terrible. It's 38 and change this year. It's $40 million next year, but he's a free agent. So the Nets acquired 2 years of Porter Jr. One's a $40 million expiring, which you probably could end up flipping at some point next year. But yeah, the Nets are going to be bad. It's what I've said before. They are trying to acquire. They're doing the classic Sean Marks move, where they acquire really bad contracts for draft capital, and next thing you know, they have 5 picks in the first round. So that's what they're trying to do. I think it's a great deal for Denver. I'm very anti-Porter Jr. as a player. And I think that his durability is a concern too. I think he gives you some rebounding on occasion, which you're going to lose with Cam Johnson. But I think Cam Johnson is, objectively speaking, a better player on a pretty decent contract, definitely compared to Porter Jr. So I like the deal for Denver. Does that put them over the top? Probably not. But I do think it's an upgrade at this point. Do you have any thoughts?
I got a ton, man, but we're running out of time. I don't want to just take up a lot of time.
You can share a couple of your thoughts, though. We got some time.
Yeah. I like the move for Denver. You get a player who is going to be consistent. Michael Porter Jr. was, he was, I guess, a bit erratic.
Entire career.
Yeah, but Cam, you can slide in. He's been to the finals. He's played in the finals. He's played in a similar team structure where they're in win now mode with the Suns whenever they had Chris Paul, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, when Mikal Bridges, when they made their run. So he can plug right in. He's low maintenance. He's going to shoot the ball really well. He's going to play really well with Joker. He moves well without the ball. He did that at North Carolina. A lot of the movement stuff was it was just kind of bogged down whenever he was at Phoenix because he was just more in a standstill mode. But I mean, listen, I think he's going to be really, really good for them. Michael Porter Jr. might average 25 next year, though. That's for sure.
Yeah, in 20 games until he gets hurt again. But
well, that's fair.
Look, once again, as a Nets fan, I acknowledge the elephant in the room, which is a very, very impressive draft class coming out next year. So I am fully fine with the idea of acquiring a draft pick. 2032 is way down the road. I think they arguably should have gotten more than one first, to be honest, out of this. But Porter Jr. is making he's making about $17 million more than Cam Johnson this upcoming season. I think you could have gotten more than one pick. That's kind of my thoughts. I think you could have gotten another first-round pick potentially.
Yeah,
but I'm not going to, once again, get mad at the Nets for embracing the idea of being terrible. And Porter Jr. can definitely help you be terrible. So I think that's part of the logic there for the Nets. Yeah. It's a better trade for Denver. I give Denver, in this trade, I'll give him an A-. I think it's a solid deal in general. We'll see if they extend Cam Johnson, who's owed a deal in 2 years. It depends how much they pay him. But I think it's a pretty good deal for Denver. For the Nets,
I trade them.
I think the Nets are a C plus here. It's not an F because I get the vision, but I would have gotten more than one first-round pick for Porter Jr. Then again, he's unprotected. So we'll see what happens for the picks going forward. But either way, point the Nets did make a trade midway through the show. So now I got to sit through Porter Jr. For 50 games a season, which is not going to be fun. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for the show. Anything else you want to add?
That's about it, man. Gotta love basketball.
Yep, definitely fun. We have a lot more offseason to cover, so I'll get into that later on. But until next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bats. Bye, everyone.
Basket.